Hello, everybody, and I hope you're enjoying 2024 so far. We're at the first UFC card of the year. It's going to be, I didn't do like a year recap for 2023 or predictions for 2024, but I do think that this is going to be a big year. And the reason I say that is because you've got the antitrust lawsuit that presumably will wrap up this year. You've got the first year of the post-USADA drug testing era for the UFC. And is that going to be different? Is that going to be better? Is that going to be worse? We're going to find that out. And, well, outside of that, you still have like Francis Ngannou fighting like Anthony Joshua this year. We'll see how that goes. If that draws, that may shift UFC business model to some degree. That may shift PFL business model to some degree. Although with the PFL, I'll just squeeze this in here. With the PFL, I do think that there's a narrative like, well, if Francis Ngannou doesn't fight for the PFL, it's not going to work out for them. And the thing is, I don't actually see Francis Ngannou fighting for the PFL as the big win for the PFL. I think it's just awareness. There are people that have never, ever talked about PFL, have never known about PFL, frankly, that are like actually talking about it now because of Francis Ngannou. Now, the problem here is, now to be clear, I'm not saying that this is a win, that this is going to make the PFL, that this is going to extend their market share, their profile, their financial viability. I just think that it's the same problem if Francis fights as if he doesn't. And what I mean by that is, if Francis fights, okay, sure, you've got one card, maybe two cards here, that people will turn into to watch Francis fight. Does that fix your business? The answer is no. You need something that'll take that interest from people who want to see Francis or are just willing to check out the PFL because of Francis and make them repeat customers. That means card quality. That means narrative quality. That means all the things that, make a fighting promotion viable. And the problem is that the, the lovely people at the PFL have been pretty bad at that throughout time. So we'll have to see. Let's get on to this card. This card that opens up the new year for the UFC. Ankalaev versus Walker 2. I'm not a big fan of this card. And it's, to be clear, actually for an Apex card, it's pretty good for like quality. Like when you're opening up the card with Bunez versus Van and Nolan versus Mata and Silva versus Wilson and Basharat versus Lapalus on the undercard and McGee versus Bolaños on the undercard and Semmelsberger versus Parsons on the undercard, you've got a pretty good card. Like the undercard is pretty dope. Yeah, mind you, the featured prelim being Arlovsky versus Waldo Cortez Acosta, a little bit lame. But like the problem is the top of this card. Ankalaev versus Walker is a rematch that inevitably has to happen because the first one ended in a DQ loss, but isn't exciting. And you partner that with a co-main event between Manel Kape and Matthias Nicolau that is a rematch that should not happen. And then you have Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez, which is a fight of two guys who I really, really liked and still like, but at the same time, they're old. It's a combined age of 75 years old. That's a little bit of a it's a little bit weak. It's a little bit problematic if you catch my drift. So you have those three fights at the top that I'm not really looking forward to, that aren't really grabbing my attention. Yes, the prelim, very good for an Apex card. Very good. But the main card, kind of trash. Still, going to watch it, going to enjoy it. We haven't had a UFC fight card in a hot minute, so, that'll probably make up for it just a little bit. Main event, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. I broke this fight down before. I took Ankalaev by TKO then. I'm still taking him by TKO now. Nothing about the actual fight that happened really changed my mind. Essentially what happened was Walker had some success at range with the low kicks, as seems to always be the case because Ankalaev doesn't defend low kicks very well at all. Walker throws low kicks a lot in his association with SPG Ireland. But then he eventually had to go for like a jumping knee, got taken down, got kneed illegally, and we're here. Realistically, like if Ankalaev is smart and just relies on his wrestling, he will crush Walker. If he engages in a kickboxing match with him, it'll be closer, it'll be competitive, but like at the end of the day, Walker really doesn't do much but do like a low pace, low kick a fight at range. And Ankalaev, as bad as he is at preventing leg kicks, seems to just be able to like just take them. Like the Jan Blachowicz fight is a great example of this, where like by the end of it, Ankalaev barely can walk, but like he's still somehow coming forward, still somehow getting takedowns. Like there's an inhuman like will and indomitability to him when it comes to leg damage, which is just so interesting, but like at the same time frustrating, because you look at Ankalaev and it's like you should be able to win this fight really, really easily, and you're going to make it harder on yourself by being a dumbass. Still, I mean, can Walker win? Sure, absolutely. Walker is super dynamic, super explosive, super athletic. These things that really made him very, very interesting before he went to SBG Ireland, but they're not really there now. Well, I mean, they are there now, but they're not really accessible in the way that he likes to fight. And, you know, he's kind of against anybody with the physicality to match him. I just have to pick them. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Ankalaev. And, I mean, I may end up regretting it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not betting on it because Ankalaev is like a minus 450 to minus 590 favorite. And Walker's plus 333 to plus 410. Don't bet on this fight. Just don't. By the way, let's get the first 2024 betting rant out of the way. Listen, I'm going to give you advice as to what I think is going to happen in terms of who's going to win and what betting lines are interesting. I'm going to give you that advice, and to be clear, I'm going to give it to you in the manner of don't bet lots of money. This is MMA. You will lose money. Random stuff happens. This is too chaotic to make it a living. So sure, put a little bit of money aside, like I'm doing. I've got $200. I took $200, put it in a little side pocket. That's my betting money. If I lose $200 on this card, I'm not betting the rest of the year. That's how this is going to work. If I win money, it goes into that little cachet. That's how I do it. That's me. You should probably do something similar. Maybe you can feel comfortable with more than $200, but right now for me, that's my limit. Anyways. Taking Ankalaev. Matthias Nicolau versus Michael Kape, another rematch. Nicolau won the first one. I think Nicolau is essentially the same fighter he was then. He's a really good counterpuncher, has some good wrestling, some top control, pretty well-rounded, a guy who very patient, very inflappable, very, very good, don't get me wrong. And Michael Kape is very, very good as well. Very athletic, tends to be a bit more of a counter fighter as well. Very fast, powerful, creative. The problem is that they combined these two guys the first time and it produced a pretty dull fight. And I think this is probably going to be the same, honestly. It's been like 3 years and I'm flipping my pick, obviously. Like if I was going to say the exact frame, I'd be taking Nicolau, but I am taking Kape. I do think Kape, now that he's been working more exclusively with, or not exclusively, but more at Extreme Couture, has picked up more tactical ideas, more ideas to be able to turn up pressure, particularly when he gets the advantage. He's gone from being this reactive counter fighter to more of a pressure counter fighter, and he has the athleticism that is actually really, really hard to beat. I really don't like the fight, though, because it's a rematch. It's a fight that, like, let's be honest here. Michael Kape is like number 2 in line for a flyweight title shot. It's like Amir Albazi and then him. Because, like, I'm sorry, you can't really book Kaikar France there, or Nicolau, or Royval. They're just not really, they're not really options. Even though they're theoretically ranked perhaps higher. Actually, what is, hang on, let me pull up the actual UFC rankings for flyweight, if I may, real quick. Am I forgetting someone? Is there someone in the mix that I should be mentioning? Okay, so you got Brandon Moreno, who's fought Pantoja like 4 times. Not really an option. Albazi, which I put at the top there. Royval just lost. It has lost twice to Pantoja. Kaikar France has had some struggles lately. Matthias Nicolau lost to Royval. And then, yeah, you get the Kape at 6. And then, like, 7's Alex Perez and, like, Mohamed Mokaev, which, no. So, like, he's number 2 in line for a title shot. And you're putting him in here against a guy who has beat him before, to be clear, and who cannot really be marketed as a title contender until he puts together a couple of wins because he's coming off of a loss. And you're like, go out there and do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I shudder to think of what a Manel Kape title fight promotion would be like, because I really think he would go the Sean Strickland, lesser extent Ian Gary, Colby Covington route of trash talk. I mean, this is a guy who like literally said your genetics are I forget what the exact word is, and I probably don't even want to use the exact word, but like your ancestry is weak when Alex Perez pulled out of the fight. And don't get me wrong, I'm as frustrated with Alex Perez's pullouts as anyone, but like it was a bad look, and we probably would 100% get a ton of that with Manel Kape. He is a dick, is what I'm getting at. But like I don't know what this fight does really. Like, okay, let's say he wins, and I'm picking him to win. Let's say he wins. All right, he's evened it up 1-1 with Matthias Nicolau, who's a guy that chronically does not get enough credit from casual fans. And then you end up with a flyweight title fight where you're doing the Mighty Mouse Johnson thing kind of again, where you're not building up title contenders to fight Pantoja and actually like, get people invested and get people like to do business. Do business better. Anyways, Kape is the favorite, minus 275 to minus 295. Nicolau's plus 210 to plus 230. You could theoretically bet on Nicolau, I guess, but I don't know. That Royval fight really turned me off of him a little bit. I think there's some durability issues going in there. He is 31 years old. Don't get me wrong, 31 is not old, even by MMA standards. Generally not old, but like flyweight is a accelerated aging tank, and I don't know. I could see maybe just some things not working the way they used to. And like I said, I think Kape has become a better fighter, training with a higher level of coaching. Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez, talking about like guys post prime. We got a 40-year-old versus a 35-year-old. 35 is kind of like that magical switch off. By the way, somebody on Twitter was arguing with me, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, was like, no, man, Stipe Miocic is only 41 years old. That's not old. It's like, would you care to look at the UFC's ranking pages? And keep in mind, Stipe Miocic is getting a title shot. So, like, look at the rankings pages and then pick out the fighters that are over 40. There are very few of them. Very few. Yes, 41 is old for MMA. I would have taken Jim Miller in these two guys' prime. I mean, Jim Miller in his prime was one of the best lightweights in the world. At least that wasn't like absolute elite. Like he was that level right below S tier. He was like an A tier fighter. And Benitez was never at that level, and also like, for the most part, probably suited to 145 more. But Lyme's disease, cardio issues for Jim Miller. He's definitively not in his prime. He's further away from his prime. But like Benitez has also looked a little bit shot in recent fights. So I don't know. I like the fight in the sense that it's two old gunslingers going out there meeting up, and you don't feel like this is like sending them in there with the young lion to just get absolutely massacred. So like I appreciate that, but there's also like high level of just possible sadness where like one of these guys just kind of falls apart before our eyes. Benitez does have like a good long range kickboxing style, good counter timing, a little bit of power, a little bit of accuracy thrown in there. Nothing huge. Is not an instant like grapple or wrestle guy. But I gotta go with Miller. His aggressive power-based striking style, like he seems to actually have gotten a little bit more power in recent years. That's the one thing that like kind of he's just leaned more on. He's like, all right, I'm just gonna plant and throw, and that's kind of the thing is I think Benitez has become fragile physically. I think I had it and I didn't write it down. But if you look at his last couple of fights, you've got the TKO loss to David Onama. That's fine. But then you've also got the TKO loss to Billy Quarantillo in the third round. You've got the decision loss to Omar Morales and getting finished by Sadiq Youssef. That's the last 4 losses he's had. In the meantime, he's beaten Justin James, who's just bad. And Charlie Ontiveros, who's really bad. And I don't really think that you can, at the end of the day, pick Benitez to win this fight. Unless you're just thinking that Miller is just completely out of gas. So Miller by TKO, he's a minus 115 and minus 145 favorite. I'm tempted. And Benitez minus 105 to plus 120. That's the first fight I think I'm tempted to bet on. I'm not touching Ankalaev and Walker with the 10-foot pole, and Nicolau, Kape just have like appropriate odds, I think. Ricky Simón versus Mario Bautista. Okay, this is the first fight that I'm actually really, really hyped on. I actually like both of these guys. I think they're very, very good. I think Bautista has the higher ceiling. What I mean by that is that there doesn't seem to be anything that Bautista is particularly bad at. He is a good striker from range. He's got a good frame. Apparently only has 69-inch reaches. And apparently actually has a 1-inch reach disadvantage in this fight. That's weird. Ricky Simón never strikes me as a guy with a good reach. But good grappling, powerful wrestling. MMA lab guy, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken on that? Yeah. He's an MMA lab guy, which usually means good game planning, good ideas. But the one thing in this fight that I am a little bit worried about is the fact that, yes, Ricky Simón's game is a little bit more limited, a little bit more compact, as it were. He's kind of like a counter puncher wrestler type of guy. Counter wrestle boxer. There you go. That's where I'm going. Like, it's a very defined meta, and there are things he doesn't really do. Like, he's not dangerous from bottom, although he will force scrambles. He's not super dangerous from range. He has to kind of make you come in on him, and he's not great at pressuring. But kind of the problem here is that there's a little bit of a bully to Mario Bautista. He's a guy who likes to go in there and be like, I have a lot of A+ physicality. I'm going to hit you with it. I'm going to overpower you. I'm going to dominate you. I'm not sure. Number one, I think that brings him into the fight that Ricky Simón wants. And number two, for the takedowns and for the counterpunching. And number two, it brings him to Ricky Simón's power. And Simon's got a good chin. I know he just got knocked out by Yadong Song last time out, obviously. So there is that thought. But like, Yadong Song is a puncher. Yadong Song is a monster. So yeah, I got to go with Ricky Simón by decision. I just think that there's a way that Bautista can win this fight, but it's a way in which he has to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit more. I don't want to use the word scared, but it kind of is the one. Having that fear of like, you know what? You can't just do whatever you want to Ricky Simón. And that's kind of that. So yeah, I've got Ricky Simón by decision here. He is a minus 160 to minus 188 favorite. Might throw a bet on that. And Bautista's plus 130 to plus 155. That's a bettable line as well. So like, that's a fun fight. Talking about a fun fight, now we talk about a not fun fight. 185-pound fight between Phil Haas and Bruno Ferreira. I like Phil. I want to cheer for Phil Haas. I do. He's got a good wrestling base. He's very athletic. His strikes look really clean in a vacuum. He looks fast. He looks dangerous. He looks like he would be a legitimate threat in a division that realistically is not great. But he gets knocked out repetitively. I don't know if it's necessarily he has a bad chin. I think it's that he gets so laser focused on what he's doing that he opens up. It's vacuum thinking. It's like, all right, I'm going to throw this jab and then follow up with the cross, and then I'm going to throw it up the hook. And at no point in there is this like, well, what if the other guy throws back at me? How do I handle that? How do I defend? And it's not that he doesn't know how to defend, because like every so often he'll show you what for at least middleweight is pretty clean striking defense. But he gets wrapped up in his own thing, in his own offense, his own one-way traffic. It's kind of like the opposite of the sparring partner syndrome. And then he just gets clipped. And Bruno Ferreira is a mess as a striker, a mess as a grappler, is a mess. There you go. Like, is a chaotic mess. But he does hit very, very hard. He hits exceptionally hard. That's a recipe for disaster for Phil Haas. Like, I just can't pick Phil Haas against anybody like big. Like if he just had a chin and a concept of defense that was there at all times, he would win this fight. But he doesn't. And the only people I'm going to pick him against are like very, very, very poor strikers and very undangerous strikers. Like Deron Wynn would be a great example. Like he went out there and he showed Deron Wynn the wood chipper or a Kyle Daukaus or I mean I'm still actually a little bit stunned that he beat Nasruddin Imavov, to be honest. But like Jacob Malkoun, another good example of that. But like Chris Curtis, Roman Dolidze, Ukramar Askarov, all better fighters than Bruno Ferreira. I want to make clear on that. But how they finished him, outside of maybe Chris Curtis, totally capable for Bruno Ferreira to do. So I'm going to go with Ferreira by TKO. He is the favorite, minus 120 to minus 140. Haas is the plus 100, plus 115. Underdog, I'm staying away from this fight just in general. Andrei Arlovski, Waldo Cortez Acosta, another fight that I'm staying away from. We'll get into the betting odds here first. Cortez Acosta is one of the biggest favorites on the card, coming at minus 549 to minus 750. Arlovski plus 400 to plus 525. I would have picked Arlovski like 5 years ago, but the man is 44 years old. The speed is starting to go. The chin is actually starting to go because like the irony is, of course, everyone labeled Arlovski as like really, really chinny back in the day. But like in my opinion, it was just irresponsible defense. Like the shots that he got knocked out with were shots that would knock anyone out. Like that was the type of thing they were. He had a bit of the Phil Haas syndrome where it's like, I don't know if you have a bad chin. Because obviously, but like you're a heavyweight. You're not getting knocked out by everything. So the chin can't be that bad. You're getting knocked out by incredibly hard shots and incredibly dangerous stuff. And it's like, I don't think the chin is there anymore. I think what little durability is not there anymore. The speed isn't there anymore. The power isn't really there anymore. The veteran savvy and craftiness still there. Probably there more than ever before. But that's kind of all it is, and it's heavyweight. And Waldo Cortez Acosta, not a good fighter by any means, but dude is powerful. He is athletic. He is fast. He is all of those things that can lead to an absolute just finish, kind of similar to Phil Haas versus Bruno Ferreira, honestly. He's younger. He's 32, which is a baby for heavyweight. And it's sad, but I got to take him by TKO, even though like there are moments where Waldo Cortez Acosta doesn't know what to do. Like where someone's just not mindlessly going at him with like Rock'em Sock'em Robot stylistic fighting, and he just doesn't know what to do. He's also very bad about checking leg kicks and so on. Like there are a lot of flaws here, but yeah, I can't pick Arlovski in 2024, the year of our Lord, the year of our Lord 2024. No, I can't do that. Matthew Semmelsberger versus Preston Parsons. This is a late notice replacement fight. One of, I think, 2 on the card. Am I wrong on that? 3. Weston Wilson versus Jean Silva. Also a late notice replacement. Didn't realize that. But yeah, late notice replacement here for it was Basil Hafes, right? I don't know what to make of this fight because on one hand, I think both of these guys actually have fairly good athletic ability. Like on one hand, like I think they're good. They do. But on the other hand, they're also both just dumb. Parsons in the sense that his game is just very, very pared down. Pressure boxing plus wrestling. There's not a lot there. And in Semmelsberger's case, he just has the worst fight IQ you've ever seen. Like the physical tools are all there. He's strong, he's fast, he's powerful, he's big, 6'1", 75-inch reach, welterweight, quite large, quite effective, pretty good grappler, pretty good wrestler, a striker that sometimes shows a lot of like polish and finish and so on, but just the dumbest things. Like the classic one for him was the Jeremiah Wells fight where like he dropped down for like a guillotine. And it's like Jeremiah Wells cannot be guillotined. Look at that man's neck. Anyways, I gotta go with Semmelsberger, I guess. The late notice might help Parsons in this regard because I don't think Parsons' approach to a fight is different depending on the opponent. Like he kind of wants to do the same thing against everybody. I want to pressure you. I want to throw bombs, and then I want to get to the wrestling and top control game. That's what Preston Parsons wants to do. That's his process. That's his overall arcing idea overview for a fight. And that means that you can kind of probably apply it to just about anybody. Semmelsberger just feels better, deeper boxer, deeper wrestler, more idea of footwork, better athlete. I'm gonna have to go with Semmelsberger by decision, but I'm not comfortable with it. He's the favorite at minus 125 to minus 140, so I'm not alone. Parsons plus 105 to plus 115. I'm just staying away from it. Marcus McGee versus Gaston Bolaños. So here we have two ends of a spectrum that I'm always really, really worried about when they come into the UFC. And they've both been here for a little bit. I think they're combined 3-0. Marcus McGee is the guy who feels like he kind of has to do everything. Like there's no dominant skill set. There's no go-to. There's no real thought. I'm going to strike with you, which is going to lead to the wrestling, which is going to lead to the grappling, which is going to lead to a submission or a TKO stoppage, or it's going to lead to you scrambling back to your feet, and that's going to get us back to the reset. We're gonna go do it again and again and again. And the thing is that if you strike with Gaston Bolaños, because he's the opposite end of the spectrum, the one-trick pony, the I can do one thing really, really well, which is kickbox and meme fight, but I cannot do anything else. I'm not really a good wrestler. I'm not really a good grappler. I've been burned by guys who are not remotely UFC caliber in grappling exchanges before and are not very good grapplers. And Marcus McGee is certainly going to be able to do that kind of thing if he wants to do it. But how much is McGee going to come out and feel it out on the feet with Bolaños? Because that would be a mistake. Bolaños is a very potent striker. Very dangerous. Now, Marcus McGee is at MMA Lab. Maybe this is where we see more of a refined game plan for him than we did against Journey Newsom or JP Buys. It's where he goes out there and he just is like, all right, I'm up against a guy who realistically is a can crusher, who has even lost to a couple of those cans, who can't really wrestle, can't really grapple. And I'm just going to force him to do that because I'm athletic, I'm strong, I'm whatever. I'm not aware of any wrestling background or whatever. He doesn't fight like it. But a guy who should have all the tools to just win this fight. And I'm going to go with McGee by submission. I'm going to trust in that, but we'll see. He may consent to a range kickboxing match with Bolaños for long stretches and get knocked out. Betting odds, McGee is a minus 230 to minus 265 favorite. Bolaños plus 188 to plus 210. I'm not going to bet on Bolaños as an underdog, and that's a little bit too confident betting wise on McGee. So staying away from it. Fareed Basharat versus Taylor Lapidus. I really like Fareed Basharat, the Basharat brothers in general. I'm going to talk about them as kind of one guy because as much as they are different, to be clear, they're a little different. Their archetype is the same. This is kind of like talking about Cole and Micah Miller back in the day, or Joe Lozon and Dan Lozon without the horrible work ethic discrepancy. They're not the same. They're a little bit different. There are strengths, there are weaknesses in both of them that are not quite in the other one. But the same kind of thing is there. This kind of slick kickboxing game backed up by a surprising competence in wrestling. And people are talking about them as future champions. I'm not there. I'm not with the cult of Basharat on that regard. But I do think that they're going to be very, 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 very good. And Taylor Lapidus kind of is like Gaston Bolaños. He's better. Don't get me wrong. He's better. Also, by the way, why is this fight below McGee versus Bolaños? But Lapidus likes to throw a lot of kicks. He likes to fight at range. He's not that good in the pocket. He's not that good in close. And I would think that the Extreme Couture coaching staff would be like, hey, Fareed, what we're going to do here is we're going to keep the pressure going forward. We're going to keep that in our advantage. We're going to keep cutting it down. We're going to keep cutting the range down. We're going to get to the mid-range. We're going to get to the close range. We're going to implement that wrestling game that we've been working on and that has been working out pretty well. And we're just going to have a really clean victory here. We're just going to take away what Lapalus does well, suck him into the cage, put him on his butt, and utilize our game. Now, to be clear, Lapalus is not like Bolaños in the sense that I do believe Bolaños is a more or less useless grappler. He's an explosive athlete, so he can get out of some things. But that's it. Lapalus knows how to grapple, knows how to wrestle a little bit. It's just, it's not UFC caliber wrestling and grappling. I think he will be put on his butt. I think he will be controlled the decision. I think he will get kind of just beat up in a really clean, impactful win for Basharat. So Basharat minus 240, 250, pardon me, to minus 300. Lapalus plus 200 to plus 240. Sounds about right. Probably stay away from it. Boom. Weston Wilson, John Silva. John Silva by TKO. He is a minus 800 to minus 1115 favorite, so you don't go near that. And Wilson plus 520 to plus 700. I don't really know what to think about Silva. He is a can crusher type of guy. Like his fight before Dana White Contender Series was a 9-9 opponent, but he does seem to hit pretty hard, have the physical attributes. He is violent. Kind of reminds me of Vitor Petrino, but Vitor Petrino is a 205er, and like that kind of physicality is on its own just like kind of enough. I think there's going to be a bump in the road at some point. I think there's going to be problems at 145 for John Silva, but like it ain't Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson's a Wonder Boy protege, disciple, I suppose would be the word. He doesn't have what makes Wonder Boy work. He's not as good of a kickboxer. He's not as good of range. He doesn't have the physicality. His wins most commonly come by guillotine or guard sub. That's a bad sign when you're a kickboxer predominantly. He's just not athletic enough, not dangerous enough, and not very durable. Silva should just be able to walk up to him and go bonk, and that'll probably be it. Tom Nolan versus Nicholas Mata. This is the fight I'm the least confident I have a read on. My thing here with Nolan is he's 6'3" lightweight. And when I watch his regional footage, I just find it uninformative. And what I mean by that is he goes out there and he looks like tall man defense, some reasonable power, reasonable technique, and a little bit awkward. A little bit awkward as tall guys tend to be. A little bit off balance. And I keep wondering to myself, like, if that's all, he's going to lose a lot. If that's all, he's going to lose to Nicholas Mata here, and he's going to lose a lot in the UFC. But he's also been 4 inches taller than everyone he's fought. And like it or not, when you're 4 inches taller than someone, you can just do tall guy offense and defense. That's all you need to do. And that's going to be a win. So is there more under the surface? Or is his footage an accurate read to me? That's the problem. I'm going to go with Mata. He's shown me more, even though, to be clear, Nicholas Mata's let me down in the UFC horrendously. I thought this was going to be not a champion, not a ranked fighter, but I thought he was going to be a reliable source of action fights that he's just not been. He's just fallen apart. And that's a problem. But like, this does feel like Nolan's not that smooth on the retreat, not that smooth with the footwork, and will kind of just get bonked. Kind of like Weston Wilson, but with way more athleticism, I guess. Nolan is a big favorite, minus 300 to minus 350. I'm tempted to put money on Mata at plus 230 to plus 275. I don't trust him. He's lost that trust, but I don't know. I don't have a vibe off of Nolan that I like. Felipe Bunez versus Joshua Van. This is a late notice replacement fight. It was going to be Bunez versus Dennis Bondar, I believe. By the way, what is the deal with like Bunez skipping Contender Series? What is the logic on that? Because like don't get me wrong, bring me more flyweights. Bring this division to life. Get bodies in there. let it happen. But like he is like 12 or 13-6, if I recall correctly. 13-6. So like, not a very good record. It's just kind of weird that you would skip him to the big show. I've got to go with Joshua Van. Don't get me wrong. There were some things about the last fight Van had with was it Borges? Yeah, Kevin Borges. The dude made me a little bit worried about like his tendency to take like some time off during fights and like slow down and then pick it back up. I'm not really sure you can get away with that at flyweight, realistically, but like he does seem really, really smooth and very good. Like really good. Like I remember when he came in and I was like, I don't know about this kid. He's coming off the regional scene. There's like a lot of people he just couldn't compete with him. And he fought Jalga Zhumagulov and he picked up the win there. And then he had the Borges fight. I don't know. I think there's a lot to this kid. Like he's 22 years old. I think he's going to get better. I think he's going to improve. What gym is he at? I know Tapology is not a good source of this. It's got him at a 4-ounce fight club. It's Daniel Pineda's gym. That's weird. Doesn't fight like Daniel Pineda. does not fight like Daniel Pineda at all. It's got Daniel Pineda, Ike Villanueva there. That's about it. I would get to a new gym. But for now, he's putting together a really, really good boxing game and like volume striking game. He just needs to learn to keep it up at all times and keep up the pace and not let it like kind of not take a little bit off, not take exchanges off. But I do think that he'll probably sting Bunez a couple of times. Bunez he's got pace, he's got aggression, he's got fun, but like that's it. And that feels like something Van should pass with flying colors. Surprisingly close betting line. Van is only -235 to -275. For example, Tom Nolan, bigger favorite on this card. For example, Farid Basharat, bigger favorite on this card. I don't really have a problem with that. Marcus McGee, similarly sized favorite on this card. I don't know. It's a bit weird. Feels close. Bunez +180 to +210. If I didn't say the odd line for Van, it's -235 to -275. I don't know. I don't like this fight opening up the card. I understand why, because it was supposed to be Bondar versus Bunez, which is that is an opening level card fight. But you got Van in here now. Van's going to do some things. Liven up this flyweight division. Please do something with it. Put this higher on the card. There you go. That's all I'm asking. So that is all. Check out the links in the description for the MMA simulator, social medias, my gaming stuff, if you happen to be, like me, a bit of a nerd. And I will talk to you guys after the fights.